Hey, welcome back. We've got a great conversation ahead today. I'm here with Emerson Hammer with Corso. Emerson, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited. I love what Isba and you guys are doing over there. So excited to chat and get into the nitty gritty of it all.
Yeah, we are going to nerd out on post purchase today, but before we do that, I'd love just to hear your perspective on what's the state of e-commerce today.
E-commerce is always evolving, always changing. So it makes it always fun to keep a pulse on it. You really gotta be in the nitty gritty of all of it. Right now, what I'm seeing a lot with merchants is profitability. In years past, we've seen a lot of brands. There was growth during COVID. Everyone bought a lot of inventory. Everyone was scaling like really fast. And now it seems like people are trying to hone in, focus on that profitability, be more stable than they have in years past, and kind of rein that in and be more strategic. And I think they're being more thoughtful in general on their strategies than they have in the past. I mean, there was a lot going on with COVID that made for a lot of inflation, a lot of excess. And now people are trying to trim maybe some of that fat that they gained through all the boom of COVID. And that's really tightening up a lot of things in every aspect of e-commerce that relates to things operational, which I love geeking out on the side of e-com, but that also is looking at marketing spend. That's also looking at headcount. That's looking at your CX operations, looking at the way you're engaging with customers. So it's impacting the entire aspect of the business, not just the supply chain that we saw a big bump and change of things during COVID. It seems like in my mind of things.
It definitely feels like people are being more intentional and more thoughtful. They maybe recognize they don't have unlimited ammunition, and so they want to make
Yeah.
each shot. Uh, from your perspective, and just kind of where you're sitting on the post purchase side, what are some things that brands care about today that was different from years past?
Yeah, it seems like right now consolidation is something we're seeing on the post purchase of consolidating tech stack. Seeing there's a lot of like hype around different softwares. Being on the side of software tech is where we play with the post purchase aspect of it. A lot of software was inflated due to like VC funding. We see a lot of crazy multipliers and just funding rounds in general of unstable business practices on the tech provider side of things that has made some interesting relationships with the brands and the e-commerce community as a whole. And so I think a lot of brands are trying to consolidate tech stacks regarding multiple aspects of it, of saying, hey, is this software doing what it's supposed to do, what it was promised to do? Let's look at that.
Are people basically saying that they want to have fewer vendors and that's the push that you're seeing toward? Or is it more like I still want to find the best solution for that specific aspect?
Yeah, it looks a bit of both, is kind of what we're seeing. So some of them are saying like, hey, we went really heavy because we scaled a lot the past couple of years. So we just threw some janky tech that we thought was going to work. And now they're going back and evaluating like, hey, we're paying a couple $100, couple $1,000 a month for this one specific software, but it's not getting us the ROI we were anticipating maybe. So let's either eliminate that tech stack completely from it, or let's consolidate and say, hey, we have 5 different providers doing something that this one provider can do. Let's work with one vendor. So it's really trying to streamline that as far as just the engagement of the overhead of keeping tabs with multiple vendors or different softwares for different things. If they can consolidate that with one point of contact instead of having 5 separate monthly check-in calls with these different vendors, they can consolidate to one. That's better operational use for the brand, other time management of managing vendors and things like that. And then just consolidated cost and things that all bundled into one as a whole. So kind of going back to that, the whole sentiment of everyone pushing for profitability and cutting costs where they can. Really, it seems like.
Yeah. Do you find that people are willing to pay more for a bundle, or is it something where I want the bundle and it has to be less?
On our side of things, of regarding the post purchase, it's always about cost. If you can save some money, that's where it's at. I'm sure there's other services that might be able to justify something a bit more on that in a different industry. On the post purchase specifically, we're very cost sensitive on it. No one likes to pay for the post purchase aspect of their business. No one's like, oh, I want to pay more for processing a return, or I want to pay more for protection, or I want to
Yeah.
pay more for tracking the order, whatever it is. Everyone's like, where can I cut cost? And so on our side of our business, we're able to bundle and save brands money on that, which is a huge win. So the more you can save a brand money, the more you can onboard, the more damage you can do in the market as a whole in that specific industry.
Yeah. Makes tons of sense. Yeah. Post purchase is rarely a recreational activity. I mean, maybe for you guys, but people. Speaking of post purchase, like just walk me through kind of how things have changed over the last 10 years because it felt like at the beginning, packages only went one way. And if they
Mm-hmm.
had to go the other way, On a returns perspective, it was really hard. And then also just from a tracking perspective, it was like a cool, like I placed my order and now I'm going to wait. And if I haven't gotten in a couple of weeks, I'm going to send an email and maybe someone will get back to me. Just talk to me about how expectations have changed over the last 10 years.
Yeah, well, I think first, like a lot of people think of the post purchase as being something that's once you hit buy, the buy button, that's when the post purchase starts. But I think a lot of brands, I think that's kind of the wrong thinking, honestly, is you have to think about post purchase really affects your marketing. I mean, that's what the whole Amazon platform is based on their post purchase experience. And we see their massive growth. Like everyone knows Amazon because of that. So if you're able to have a great post purchase experience and you can think about that ahead of time and you know you're going to provide a great experience for your customer from the up to the time they get it to they use the product and years after, that becomes a huge marketing asset to you. And also making sure your marketing meets the expectation of the post purchase. A lot of bad post purchase experiences are due to bad expectations set. So that can be regarded into multiple things of saying, hey, it takes 2 to 3 days to process your order to be shipped. And so maybe at checkout, the customer's seeing 3 to 5 business days delivery, but that really means 3 to 5 business days from the time the order ships. So add another 1 to 2 business days to process that order or whatever. And then you're having all these customers email in asking about, hey, where's my order? That's already starting off a negative connotation with your brand there. So managing the expectations from your website is going to enhance that entire post purchase. So I think a lot of like 10 years ago plus, brands are really worried about saying, hey, this is going to take longer to get to a customer. And they try to, I'm going to say bait and switch them a little bit, but there's a bit, maybe gray area of when that item was going to be delivered. And now they're kind of realizing, oh, that's like, they're getting like hit hard on reviews and things like that. So I think the post purchase really starts from the beginning. It starts of like when you're designing your product to make sure this is going to be a durable product. It's going to have the life expectancy that a customer is going to expect to have this product to be, is where it begins. And so over the past 10 years, I think that's really transformed into making the post purchase more seamless than in the past. We're seeing a transition, I'd say, where a couple of years ago it was more common for e-commerce stores to charge a return or restocking fee. And then I'd say about 3 to 5 years ago, it kind of was like, hey, never charge for returns, kind of thing. It's always offer free returns. And now we're seeing more brands like, hey, we actually do charge a returns restocking fee, and things like that. That's industry and brand specific for sure. We're just kind of seeing a bit more adoption rate where brands are like, hey, we got to put up some type of barrier maybe, or we got to have some type of way to protect ourselves in the industry. And so we're kind of seeing that some type of way to recoup those costs of increasing returns and just the operational costs that get associated to reverse logistics as a whole. So there's a lot of stuff going on in that area, a lot of changes in the past 10 years, and excited to see what the next 10 years has in store for us.
Yeah, when you think about post purchase, obviously there's delivery mechanism, and just how quickly you're able to do that. And then there's the returns apparatus. Is there any other aspect of post purchase that people have to think about?
There's a ton of ways you can engage different brands in that. I mean, part of it is your post purchase marketing strategy. Part of it is like you're saying your shipping strategy. Part of it is this engagement of like asking for customer reviews, going for a customer upsell, putting back in pipeline for a new order, product warranty on that. Like, hey, if you have a lifetime warranty, how are you actually servicing those claims? A lot of companies don't necessarily think about that. They say, hey, we offer a lifetime warranty. And then what does that mean? It's just like, it sounds cool on marketing, but that you haven't closed the whole circle. The whole loop's not closed on that. It sounds good.
Future, yeah.
Oh yeah. And honestly, the fun thing about it is, and I think you and me are kind of the same boat of no one thinks shipping is sexy. In general, if you go around like, hey, I'm in logistics, I'm in supply chain, no one's ever like, oh dude, that is the sexy business. Like everyone wants to be a marketer. Everyone wants to be a CEO. Everyone wants to run their own brand. No one's like, dude, you know how to package that box really well, But yeah, exactly. But I mean, my passion for it, I remember like I always wanted to be a grocery guy, like a bagger, because I was like, dude, that's like Tetris all day. You gotta like try to fit how much stuff can you fit in that bag every time it comes down the conveyor belt. I'm like, that just sounds like a fun job. And so kind of relating that into supply chain is just like, yeah, how can you optimize that box? How can you optimize the pick lines? How can you optimize this entire process? So basically what I'm saying is like, no one thinks this business is sexy, but there's so much opportunity for improvement, but no one really wants to communicate about it as a whole. No one's going around saying like, hey, we have a 14% return rate. Whoa, like we're crushing it. Like no one's talking about that. No one's saying like, oh, this product has like a 6% default rate. Like, oh, great. Like no one really wants to talk about their their issues, I guess, publicly on it in general. Most people are like, if you on LinkedIn, it's like, we had a revenue growth year, we hit 20 million in revenue or whatever it was. But no one's talking about their tag times. No one's talking about their pick efficiencies, dropping it by a 0.25% or whatever it was. And that's the stuff I love. Like, I love diving into that aspect of it. And when brands are kind of a bit more vulnerable and talking about that, that's when you see those efficiencies improve. So if we're not talking about it, we're not going to improve it. You can't improve what you don't measure, right? And so if you're not tracking those things, or you're too afraid to do that, then it's not going to get better. There's so many brands that I talk to on a daily basis that I'm like, hey, what's your return rate? And they're like, I don't know. It's somewhere in there. Like, they don't even know. So it's like hard to benchmark. And I'm like, how do you, like, that's a huge cost center to your brand. Like, oh, we actually have like a 20% return rate. It's like, let's work on that. Let's see what we can do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What are some things that consumers, in your experience, really care about versus things that they only passively care about? And, this comes to mind where, for me, it was always the promise of same day shipping. When that first came out, I know you had like, I think, what do they call it? It's like DHL Metro or something like that, where you could literally have it shipped and delivered within a couple hours. And everybody said, that's awesome. I want that. Until it was like, oh, it's going to cost you an extra $10. Like, oh, I'm good. I'll wait for 2 days. It's cool. So,
Yeah.
what are the things like that? Are people saying, oh, I really want that, versus once it comes down to brass tacks, they either don't want to pay for it or they don't really care about?
Yeah, there's probably quite a few of those things. One of the things that, I mean, exactly what you're saying, shipping is a very interesting thing. I think a lot of it is customers just want to manage their expectations. That's where the frustration happens. And so if you're able to set the right expectations, you're going to reduce a lot of that friction as a whole. I think of some things that get a lot of fluff we see in our industry a lot is like going green. Everyone talks about like, oh, I want a sustainable solution. But when it comes down to, brass tacks, when it comes to what that actually entails to have a green shipment, that's where it's like, oh, maybe like we'll be partially green shipping on that. I don't know. So that's something like sustainability sounds really good. And unfortunately, as far as like marketing goes, you can, I don't know, call like greenwashing a lot. Like, you can kind of say, hey, we're sustainable, we're more sustainable than we've been in the past. And like, say we're sustainable now. Like, what does that really mean? Like, you can bundle a lot of stuff into that. So I think that's one thing. Like, consumers say they want something sustainable. Will they actually pay for it? That's one thing. We see a lot of aspects of like, hey, made in America, like, is that really important? Is it not really important? At the end of the day, it all comes to price sensitivity. So if you can offer a better service in multiple regards and it's cost effective, that's what everyone really cares about. That's what the brand wants. They want more profitability. The customer wants a better deal. No one's saying, I want to pay more for this service. They want to find a way to have that baked into the existing cost somehow.
I definitely agree with that. I think that there's certainly an aspect of people have expectations that a brand is going to behave a certain way, like they're going to be sustainable, they're going to treat people well, things like that. But yet at the same time, people love shopping on Temu, which is going to be like, like let's remove all barriers for safety or environmental things like that, and let's just run a process on what's the cheapest possible thing we can get. And there's a huge market for that. So it is kind of difficult where to some extent people want to know and they want to hold you accountable. But then there's other cases where they're like fine putting their heads in the sand and be like, sure.
Yeah. And I would say a lot of the times there is a few loud voices that dictate a lot that a brand does. I've seen it multiple times where they have one loud customer and then a brand will change their entire processes, but that was just one pissed off customer and they were just going to be that way, but they'll change the whole processes. And so I think just kind of understanding like how loud is that noise from one person versus a collective. And what I'm kind of referring to on that is just like if you have a product warranty issue or something like that, customers want they want to have some type of warranties. Like, do you really need a lifetime warranty? Do you need a 1-year manufacturer warranty? Do you need like a 5-year warranty? And how you resolve those claims is a huge thing. So while you do say like you do want to like stand behind your product, you want to offer like a good solution to it. A lot of brands might think, hey, I'm gonna get taken advantage of if I offer this great warranty. And at the end of the day, how many customers are actually going to take advantage of it? A lot of brands are like, hey, if someone has a broken product, I have to send them a whole new product. Like, really just like send the expectation up front. Again, kind of what I alluded to at the beginning is have that expectation up front. If it's a 1-year warranty, to state it's a 1-year warranty. If it's a 5-year warranty, state that, and to set that customer expectation. There's always going to be customers trying to abuse that. And maybe there's more the exception than the rule that you work with those customers at the end of the day. But I think to send those expectations, customers want a good product, yes. and they want to feel like you have their back for sure. But most of the time, if a customer is asking for something, just set in like, hey, this is what we market as, this is what the product does, and clarifying those expectations. Usually the customers are more understanding. I'd say customers are more understanding is the rule more than the exception that I've experienced. But there are a few loud ones that make it not seem that way.
Yeah, let's talk about the exceptions. I think there are people that are loud, but then there's also folks that are just downright fraudulent and are
Yeah.
intentionally gambling. So let's just kind of dive into shipping fraud a little bit, which is something that you guys deal with on a regular basis.
Mhm.
If a package isn't received by a consumer, who typically pays for that?
Typically, it goes on the brand aspect of it. Depending on the industry, what you're shipping and the shipping methods and things like that, it can go multiple ways. At the end of the day, carriers it becomes like a pointing finger game at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, the customer is the brand's customer. It's not like FedEx customer. Typically, it's like, if I buy this product, I'm shipping FedEx to the customer. The customer's not like, hey, I'm never going to ship with FedEx again. They usually don't have much control over that. So the brand is going to try to reclaim something back from the carrier if they can. Usually carriers don't want to pay out claims. Most carriers like FedEx, UPS have like $100 built-in insurance with every shipment going out. But we've seen that typically only about 20 to 40% of claims actually get paid when you use the carrier filing claims with the carrier direct. They have so many. If you've seen rate negotiations with the carrier, they make it super difficult on purpose to understand what your shipping rate's actually going to be, and their claim process is just the same. And so they have a low claim pay rate out. So at the end of the day, the brand's eating it one way or the other. Operationally, the product actually hard cost, the customer service as a whole. So long story short, the brand usually eats that cost.
Yeah, but it's nothing contractual. It says like if I don't have a package that delivered, the brand owes me. It's something that they are saying like, okay, I'm going to try to retain you as a customer. I will reach something. That's what you mean by that.
Exactly. Yeah. So it depends on what their shipping terms are on that. I mean, if you are using a credit card company and a package doesn't get delivered, you have a very high rate that the chargeback, you're going to lose that chargeback claim if a customer files a chargeback for not receiving that product. Shipping carriers as a whole, it's more of a retention. Like the brand has the most to lose in that situation. It's not like they're going to 99.9% of the time, the brand doesn't even, the customer doesn't even associate the lost package to the carrier. They're usually not ticked off at FedEx. I mean, they're sometimes ticked off at FedEx or UPS or whoever the carrier is. But at the end of the day, they're like, brand, you botched that shipment. And you're like, I don't have so much control. It's like I put your address on the package and I gave it to them. And then somehow I got smushed in transit. And then it becomes the brand's fault or the warehouse's fault.
Typed in the wrong address,
Yeah,
like those.
all the time. You should have known I moved. And I'm like, I have no idea who you are, man.
What are some of the different types of shipping fraud that you've seen that brands should be aware of?
They're getting like trickier. They're getting savvy or more stupid. I can't tell. So we deal a lot with porch piracy. Is always an issue. The other thing too is return fraud. Not necessarily on the shipping protection aspect of it, but return fraud is a huge thing. When I worked at a brand before, I worked at a luggage brand. And we would ship out our product, our luggage piece to a customer, and then we would get Samsonite luggage returned back in our branded packaging. And so our warehouse was like, oh, the package came back, it looks fine. But I was like, that's not even our brand's luggage, man. Like they just returned the wrong item. And so automation rules kind of just like said, okay, send them a refund. And they kept the right bag. They probably went to Walmart or went to Goodwill and bought some luggage and just put it in the box and shipped it back. There's a lot of that stuff going on. Like you said before, shipping fraud is wrong address validation. Usually a lot of brands, depending on how the brands, a lot of it in customer service and e-com is speed is the name of the game. And so they do what they can. So a lot of customers say, hey, I shipped it to the wrong address. They may not ship it to their home address. They ship it to an office address or something like that, or a PO box. And they say, hey, I shipped it to the wrong address, when really they just shipped it to their office, and then they have the brand send them a new order while they try to recoup that package in transit. And most of the time they can't. Once the package is left, it's very difficult to reroute it back to your original, to your warehouse. So they'll get it shipped to 2 different locations on their reorder going out somewhere else and things like that. But porch piracy definitely is increasing. Just the trust of saying, hey, my package never got delivered when it's marked as delivered. it's honestly pretty hard to validate unless the carrier is doing signed signatures or they are taking pictures of the delivery. And more carriers are starting to roll that out. So we're seeing a decrease in that. FedEx rolled that out recently. UPS rolled it out in some areas. They take picture verification of the actual delivery. So you're seeing a reduced amount of that. Those are kind of the typical issues we see as a whole.
That's interesting. So you said earlier that the brands have very little control over the carrier performance, so to speak, but at the same time they're on the hook for sorts of things. So is there anything that you'd recommend a brand do, any strategies that they should do to mitigate fraud?
Hand deliver every package is the best way to do it. No. So yeah, no, there's a couple of ways to do it. There's a couple of good softwares out there. There's a couple of processes you can implement. One thing to mitigate the wrong address shipping is if you're using Shopify, there is a very light address validation built into Shopify. There's a lot of ways you can enhance that through different address validation tools out there. So have a good address validation tool enacted there. Another thing is just ensure your packout verification. We're seeing a lot more 3PLs or self-fulfillment warehouses have cameras at the packout station that are timed, so you can go back and verify, like, hey, that item was shipped out. Here's photo verification from checkout of your item. That's if this is like a huge issue. I mean, it's a costly expense to have tech like that and implement in your warehouse. So if it makes sense at scale and volume. The other thing too is there's a lot of fraud protection softwares out there. Use some like Signified and stuff like that in the past. No Fraud are great Shopify apps that set up triggers and take millions of data points to identify if this customer have fraudulent activity in the past. That's probably one of your best defenses out there. And then on top of that, having a shipping protection program built into your cart experience as well to protect you, your customers, and your brand from loss, damage, stolen shipments as a whole, to reduce that cost and expense to you.
Gotcha. So let's just move into shipping protection. I know that's something that you deal a lot with. What is it in a nutshell?
Yeah, shipping protection, basically what it is it's a fee you collect at checkout that's going to offset the cost of any shipping mishaps you have, like a lost, damage, or stolen package. So usually it's a percentage or a fixed dollar amount at the cart experience. So it's like, cool, this package is $100 shipping to the customer. Customer might pay $1, $2 for that added protection. And usually what that will do is it's going to reduce the handle time to get that claim resolved if there is any mishap that happens in shipping. So it gives the customer the brand peace of mind knowing, hey, this is going to get speedily resolved. It's going to be taken care of. There's not a huge back and forth of dealing with carriers, dealing with all these third parties. It just gets taken care of really quick, seamlessly, and easily for everyone involved.
And so, like, we'll use Corso as an example. Good example to use. When there's a claim that's filed, is it basically Corso is the one that's paying the claim and handling that, or is it something that they're then going after FedEx, or like how do you guys handle that?
Corso is acting as kind of the fund management of that. Of hey, the customer bought the shipping protection. If there's anything that happens, maybe it says marked as delivered when it didn't actually get delivered, or maybe it's stuck in the Nashville hub and it's sitting there for 12 days. It's not moving. Corso will first work on getting that package delivered, get it rerouted, get it resolved, working with the carriers if we need to. If for whatever reason it doesn't meet those SLAs, isn't moving, what Corso does and where we differentiate from other shipping insurance agencies or protection agencies out there is we are embedded as an app into Shopify. And so we'll say, hey, this package marked as delivered, it's not actually delivered. We're going to repurchase this item at the retail value from the merchant and then reship a new order to the customer after you confirm their address. Going through a couple of checks and balances to make sure we have everything accurate. We'll repurchase that item from the brand and ship it to the customer. What that differentiates is most insurance companies are going to write you a reimbursement check of saying, okay, cool. After 2 to 3 weeks, maybe they'll write a reimbursement check. So here's a $100 order. They'll send you a check for $100, and that's pretty much it. But you have to manage all that customer interaction. The brand will have to manage that customer interaction, the back and forth. Where Corso differentiates is we actually manage that customer interaction back and forth, go straight to the source, and get that claim resolved. And then from there, we are reordering through our integration with Shopify that new order and shipping out to the customer. So your customer service team doesn't have to get involved unless they want to. We have a fully transparent dashboard so you can see any communication we're having with any customers following any type of claim. So it's very transparent between all parties involved. And then you can see, okay, we reordered this order on this date. It's shipping to the customer. They're taken care of, or whatever it might be. So instead of sitting that that check, they then have to reconcile on your books, or you have to then still go through your process, reorder that order for the customer, ship it back out, whatever it is. We streamline the entire process and get it taken care of with a 24-hour SLA. So in 24 hours, that customer's getting a resolution, getting their order reshipped, getting it taken care of, getting that order back on track and whatnot.
That's great. You kind of alluded to this earlier, but shipping protection has a bad reputation in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it's a scam. Like it's either from a consumer perspective, it's not worth it, or from a brand perspective, like it's not a great experience. So
Mm-hmm.
can you just maybe address that head on? Why does shipping protection have a bad reputation?
Yeah, there's a lot of players in the game in the first place. So there is a lot of competition in this realm, which is great for us as Corso as a whole. The main thing is carriers or providers don't pay out the claims in the first part. So that's the main thing is they make it super difficult. It's like, cool, I bought this protection at checkout. Now I have an issue. I want to file a claim, and they're not making me do it. They have so much barriers to file that claim. It's like, okay, some agencies have like a 10 to 15 day claim window. And typically when you're shipping something, like sometimes you order stuff all the time and you forget you ordered it and you forget to file a claim within those 10 days. And like, oh, sorry, you're out of that window. You can't file it. Or sometimes they make you file a police report and it's like, it costs money to file a police report. It's like, cool, I bought this $50 item. It got stolen off my porch. I put a police report, but it costs $25 to file the police report. So it's like, that's not even worth it for the customer and all the time that goes into it. So they put a lot of like hoops you have to jump through, which makes it super just a bad experience. The customer's already having a bad experience, and then their protection agency that's supposed to make it a good experience made it a bad situation even worse. I always kind of say like we are the best at being the worst business people out there because we make it super easy to file a claim with us. Like we have so many integrations with different order tracking solutions, different help desks, like integrate like Gorgeous and Zendesk and Malomo and Wonderment, Phoenix Commerce. There's so many different like integrations we have where a customer can file or report a shipping issue in multiple places on your website, wherever it might be. They can report a shipping issue and we can take care of it. And so for us, that's where we really differentiate ourselves personally at Corso. Is if you bought protection on it, it's for a reason. Let's make sure you get the service you need. So we have extended claim windows, over 60 days to file a claim, which is out of the norm for this industry. And then just a quick resolution as a whole are kind of some of the ways we stand out and differentiate from our competitors.
One of the complaints I've heard from some brands is just the idea of customers being default opted into shipping insurance versus having to opt in. Can you talk to me about kind of how you guys approach that? Do you do something similar, or is it different?
Yeah, the preferred method is to have it as default on. Honestly, the main thing is to have the more attachment rate, the more orders you protect, and the more impact you're actually going to have of actually seeing that service in play. So that's one of the main reasons of having it on. The main thing though is making it. We're not trying to be sly about it. At any point, it's not like, oh, we sneak this charge into your cart. First of all, it's like illegal to be like just be adding random crap to it like that. So for us, we do make it very transparent with either different various pop-ups, icons, marketing around it as well, so letting brands know why it's included in it. And then we have a lot that gets included in that bundle with us. On the Corso side, again, is we are more of a platform instead of a product. A lot of our competitors, like we just do shipping protection. That's all they do. For us, we really engage in the entire post-purchase aspect of it. And so there's a lot of benefits to the customer and to the brand involved with that. So on the shipping protection aspect of it, we talked before about actually having a sustainable shipping method involved with that. We do carbon offsets. So we actually do use those funds of shipping protection are also used to offset the last mile delivery of that package. So there's a lot of opportunity to include that, saying, hey, we're sustainable, we're protecting your package. There's a lot going into that one charge that creates a lot of value to that customer on top of just the quick resolution, the carbon offsets, the do give the sustainability effect of that charge as well. So the main thing is, yes, we do want to have a higher attachment rate on it, being transparent with the customers on it, and then making it we're very customizable or very upfront about it. If someone has it on their cart and they check out, we have very easy to use solutions where a customer can cancel having shipping protection. Even if they went through the whole order and they want to cancel, they can still cancel after purchase through some of our integrations. So we make it very, transparent is the name of the game. Like I said before, managing expectations, let the customer know, hey, we offer shipping protection. These are the reasons why. We want to make sure you have a great post-purchase experience. So we partner with Corso, and this is how it's going to help you. are kind of some of the ways just being transparent and upfront about it.
Yeah, makes sense. What percentage of end consumers actually opt into shipping protection? Is it like
Yeah.
5% or 90%?
Yeah, so it depends on the method you're doing. So when you have it as opt-in, where it's not added to the cart automatically, you're seeing typically anywhere between like a 2 to 10%, depending on the store, the price point. There's a lot that goes into it. So it depends on your industry, it depends on your vertical and your price point. All go into play there. When you have it as defaulted on, most of the time you'll see anywhere between 45 up to 80% attachment rate we have with some stores. So it, again, depends on a lot of your vertical, your product, your industry, and price point, all kind of take into account on those aspects of it.
Got it. And kind of a follow-up question is, what percentage of consumers that have shipping protection actually use it?
Yeah. So as a whole, looking at it, depends, again, there's a lot of variables on it. Depends on like how much your international shipments, the shipping methods you're using, your fulfillment practices and things like that. And industry standard, if you're, most brands will have anywhere between like 0.5% up to like 1.5 to high 0.2%. Ours might have some shipping issue related concerns about it. Again, that's for lost, damaged, stolen packages. As a whole, you're going to have something like that is probably more industry standard on that front. If you're above a 2%, there's something going wrong with your supply chain. On that, you definitely want to take a look and be like, okay, we're using the wrong carriers, we're using the wrong ship methods. There's a ton of international shipments maybe going out with a consolidated shipper or something like that. They have to take account for. So again, a lot of different variables that can go into it. And when we do see a higher claim rate with a brand, we work with them like, hey, let's get to our goal isn't just be paying out claims like a million times and just like, hey, it's payroll and claims. It's, hey, let's actually address this. Let's get you into a healthy spot. The goal of all of our software isn't that you use our software more. It's actually so you use it less. And so we want to work with our brands to be like, hey, let's see why some of the other services we offer are returns and exchanges, product warranty management and things like that. So we want to be able to give you enough data to use the platform less because you're able to identify, oh, these are why customers are returning our products. Let's address that and fix it. Maybe we say the product is red when it's really maroon. Let's adjust that on our site. Or customers keep filing a warranty claim because this part of the widget keeps breaking. Let's address that. Let's collect the warranty claims, get that customer taken care of. Let's address that with our development team. Let's address that with our designers or whatever it is. So not being so proactive, not being so reactive, but being proactive is what we're trying to do here.
Okay, that's helpful. So we've talked a little bit about what happens after they buy, and we touched a little bit on kind of the marketing stuff, but let's talk about reverse logistics. And again, kind of similar to what we did earlier on, what are some customer expectations that have changed around returns in the last 5-10 years?
Yeah, this is the ultimate sexy aspect of business. This is where I love chatting about. Yeah, so the past 5 years, we've seen a lot more automation. There's a couple of ways why we're seeing more automation as a whole. Part of it is just the API keys that are more available. Talking specifically towards Shopify, what Shopify is allowing you to do now has changed significantly than where it has been in the past 5 years. So I think a lot of it is we're seeing more automation, more frictionless returns, we might say. The main thing when I say frictionless, more referring to like more self-service type of returns going on. So there still might be some type of barriers. And again, this is going to be industry specific. So talking more high level generic on that. Self-service tends to be the best option for that, mainly for like apparel, soft goods, a couple of hard goods. But when you get to electronics, you might have a little bit more barrier if you want to like troubleshoot that product a little bit more before you do a return. It's like, hey, if you return this item because of XYZ, is it due to the product not working the right way you want to return it? Or is it actually because you actually want to return it? So trying to resolve some of those questions. So again, this is more of a generic term. It's trying to make it more automated and frictionless, but there are some use cases for different industries. You might take a different approach.
Got it. That's interesting. You talked a little bit about like frictionless, and I've kind of I enjoy this debate with brands sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Is it better to have a friction-full returns process or a friction-free returns process? And this is where I'm thinking more from the aspect of the business as opposed to the consumer. Obviously, consumers want it to be super easy, but there's a certain element here where you have to kind of think about and say, do I really want to encourage people to return, or do I want to, just add a little bit of pressure there so that, maybe they have to run to the UPS store to drop it off, or, they have to do something, to get on the phone to talk to me or things like that. Where do you fall on that line? And maybe you answer that both as a consumer and then as someone who works with brands.
Yeah, I think what's fun about this space is I love problem solving, and I'd say as a whole, probably the answer is make it as frictionless as possible for your circumstance, for your brand. And so I'd say you don't want to be giving away the farm on it. Um, so the more streamlined you can make it. Now, what I would say is I'm seeing more brands enact different tiers of the frictionless aspect to it, to different categories of customers. So you might have a VIP customer that orders from you every month or whatever it is, and that the
Mm.
AOV or the lifetime LTV of that customer is greater. You want to make that a better. I want to say you're going to favor them like regardless in that situation.
Yeah.
So make that a bit better of an experience. You know you're going to get that customer coming back. That's great. Maybe make that a little bit less frictionless. Like, hey, maybe you can offer at home pickup if you want to, or you can, labelless returns or whatever it is. That's a great option. You might have some customers like, okay, they came and tried it out, or there's some customers that are serial returners and they order 10 dresses and return 9 of them or something like that. It's like, okay, like they do this every month. We need to enact a little bit more caution on that type of customer. So really building a profile around your industry type, understanding your customers better to enact the right type of return policy for them. So we're kind of seeing that a bit more. In like the apparel industry specifically, where they're kind of categorizing that different tiers for different customers and things like that. If you're on the hard goods, electronics type of thing where there's more troubleshooting involved, you understand, is this customer returning this item because they just don't like it as a whole, or they do not understand the product? So there's some education that you might have to provide to that customer before they actually return it. So enacting some type of checks and balance on that. If it's like, hey, I'm returning this item because of this, and then before actually generating the label, if you're trying to automate that, is saying, well, have you tried doing XYZ before you want to return it? And then if they have, say, okay, cool, you've gone through those checks and balances, you troubleshot it the best you could, then send it back. So there's a couple of ways to enact that. Like I said before, more brands are implementing a returns and processing fee, whatever, to
Yeah.
kind of mitigate some of that as well. So there's barriers you can put in place to make both parties happy. Obviously, a brand would love to never have a return. Um, Unfortunately, that's the name of the game. You're going to get returns, and I get jealous when I talk to a brand. I'm like, dude, you have like a 1% return ratio. I'm like, congrats, like you guys are crushing it. Like keep up the good work. That's a great product. That's a great system. You know your customers. Let's get everyone there. But there's a lot you have to do. Every industry is going to be different, and how they interact with that.
No, it's great. One of the favorite things that I've seen just in the space that brands have done is there are now apps that are coming online that basically give people a discount to waive their right to return. And so it'll
Yeah.
be like, I'm checking out, a $500 dress. Say, hey, I'll give you $50 right now if you decide that you're not going to return this for any reason. And some portion of people will opt into that. And so then if you do try to return, they say, well, sorry, you gave $50. And so I don't know how that actually works out. If people are like, yeah, but it doesn't look right, or it's broken, or it's the wrong size. I imagine that there's probably ending up in a world where they're providing the discount and then still taking the return, and so that could be kind of difficult.
It's interesting. There's a lot of, I mean, kudos to the providers out there trying to solve for this problem in unique ways. So I appreciate their ingenuity on that, I guess. But it is like, just how does that marketing come across? Of like, I think you're actually going to return it, and I don't want you to return it. So I'm just going to be like, wash my hands clean of it. It's kind of an interesting way. And we also have other competitors in the space that are saying, hey, pre-purchase your return label for a discount. And I'm like, so you're already incentivizing them, let them know, like, hey, like if you return it and you don't buy the service at checkout, it's $3. But if you buy it after the fact, it's gonna be a $7 return label. And so it's kind of like, well, that's you're marketing as a pre-purchase your free return label. Like, no, you just pre-purchased it. But it's just kind of interesting. There's different marketing ways to do it. And so
Yeah.
I appreciate the ingenuity on that and the creativeness on it. It's just like, hey, what message does that send to your brands or to your customers? So you really want to make sure that marketing and the way you're going about it resonates with your customers. At the same time, is your returns policy, if you're on Amazon, like you got to compete with Amazon. And everyone
Yep.
not selling on Amazon is trying to compete with that. So if they know on Amazon, I can get free returns on Amazon, and you're selling on both platforms, is your website now just becoming a marketing channel for Amazon because you're now charging shipping when you're not on Amazon? You're charging for returns when you're not on Amazon. So just kind of have those things in mind of just being conscious, educating on what you're doing and what message you're sending to your customers.
Yeah. That's a great point. Um, as we kind of like wrap up, the conversation, I would love to get just some parting words of wisdom from you. what advice you would give to a brand, big or small, that is looking to prepare their business for an exit?
On that, I think is data is king. Like whenever you're going to sell a business, your buyer's going to want to see data on it. So know these numbers. I run into brands way too often that don't know what their on-time delivery is. They don't know what their return rate is. They don't know how much money they're paying on returns. They don't know how they're liquidating their returns. They don't know their acquisition cost of customers. They don't know the lifetime value of customers. So make sure you have all that data aligned, not just for the exit, but also to run your business right now. And so if you're running like, I don't know, it's interesting when you sell a business, understand why you're selling it, because you're trying to probably trade up to something better, or you're trying to get more time back, you're trying to sell your business for whatever reason. Just see if you're currently operating your business and it's optimized currently right now. If you're going to try to sell it to someone, you want to hand it over in the best condition possible to get the best asking price for it. But then just take a look at those numbers and say like, oh, could I be making more money now even without exiting if I don't need to? So I'll just say, make sure you have the data and you're getting the right accurate data. I know way too many businesses also that are operating on bad data because they don't know how to get the right data. So make sure you have the right data that you're supposed to have your KPIs for. I think that's going to help you get the best price on your exit.
That's good advice. Emerson, if people want to connect with you and nerd out on their own, what's the right way to contact you?
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, Emerson Hammer, just at LinkedIn, or feel free to shoot me an email, ehammer@corso, corso.com. I love geeking out on this stuff. Again, I think e-commerce, supply chain, post-purchase is very sexy. So let's chat about all things shipping, logistics, returns, all that stuff. It's a fun time. So love to connect with anyone.
Love it. Appreciate you being on.
Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate it.